Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. DeWalt fans, rejoice! Two all-new 20-volt compacts from the Bumblebee brand dropped this week in the form of the 400 foot-pound rated DCF911 and the 450 foot-pound rated DCF921 Atomic. DeWalt's been introducing new impacts lately at rapid pace, including their new 850B driver, which is a breath of fresh air for a change, as it's been at least 6 years since we got an injection of selection from the brand in this category. And even those previous models, like the DCF890, there's a reason you haven't seen them on the dyno. We don't need the hate mail. Let's just say that they don't really cut their own mustard compared to modern examples. But that all changes today, let me tell you. So strap in, because by the end, I'm sure we'll be getting hate mail as well, but just of another variety. This is the all-new DCF911. It's a 20-volt max version of our often used own impact, the DCF901 12-volt we tested in episode 28. That did quite well, we think, and we've been using it ever since, for a large part because that tool really just sips on that 12-volt 5-amp-hour battery, and we have to really rarely charge it. The 20-volt version we have, thanks to a YouTuber by the name of Joe the Tool Guy. He purchased this and shipped it directly to us rather than him for some reason, so go check him out in a link below and give him a big what's up. So the big question is, are these tools otherwise identical? Are the internals the same but rewired for 20 volt instead of 12? Because they certainly look the same. When we tested the M18 and M12 compacts, we saw some 18 volt gains, but those tools also traded places for winning each test type. So hopefully we see some extra spice on this higher voltage contestant. For the extra price, you'd hope so. Although that is just $149 versus $169, but still, that $20 can't be for the extra plastic at the bottom, right? Up until now, we haven't had the opportunity to compare Milwaukee's M18 Gen 3 compact, the 2855-20, apples to apples, but this new DCF911B being 20 volt allows us to do just that today. That Milwaukee at 4.9 inches is shorter though, but the DeWalt at 5.25 long is still a great compact cordless sort of size. What isn't really longer than that Milwaukee is the other new 20 volt max DeWalt that came out this week, the DCF921 Atomic we purchased from Home Depot a couple days ago when they first went on sale. This stubby Atomic is just under 5 inches long. That, along with its sort of squared off trigger forward design, makes us feel like we're just seeing yellow on this one because it's very reminiscent of the Milwaukee Gen 3. I mean, maybe under 5 inches, there's not a lot you can do to shape these tools differently, but it certainly feels like DeWalt got their crosshairs right on that red brand for sure on this one. And it's also fully made in China, just like the Milwaukee as well, so none of the usual globally sourced USA assembled stickers here. But what it does not share with the Milwaukee is what makes this little guy stand out, and that's its torque ratings. 300 foot-pounds tightening and 450 breakaway. From this pocket-sized puny pygmy, DeWalt's certainly pulling a Babe Ruth and pointing at the grandstands on this one. That would make this one of the really first cordless compacts to try and fully replace air, as most of those air minis are also rated at 450. Milwaukee, of course, doesn't really cite two different torque figures like most impacts do and most of Milwaukee's own impacts do, so it's just the 250 number to contend with here. So basically it's 250 versus 300, or 250 versus 250 in the case of the DCF911. The most glaring example of how much of a modern offering this 921 model is compared to years past, in our opinion, is its power selection. Gone are the plastic toggles, which many of you said you like, but we still feel like it looks a little preschool to us. Now it's rocking some very nice feeling and working cushion button selectors for the lights and power modes. Not hollow plastic feeling buttons either. They're sort of nice chunky rubber buttons that might be a favorite of ours so far. This allows you to select precision wrench or timber modes and power modes 1 and 2, which DeWalt says are 150 foot-pounds and 300 foot-pounds tightening. We'll have a chance to test these modes at the end of this episode. But for now, you know the deal. We want to see those beans. Man, do we hate brochure specs and torque figures. We got a dyno for that. Our first test is called Working Torque, 4 direction, 5 seconds. Up first is the M18 Gen 3 Compact. $168 foot-pounds. To be honest, I don't even remember if that's good or not. Let's throw the 20 volt DCF911 in to find out. Here's that guy. 149, so down from the Milwaukee, so far at least. But that's also down from the 12-volt DCF901 we tested, which saw 162 on its median run. Looking a little dicey so far. All right, time for the DCF921 Atomic to set the tone on this episode. Let's see it. $189, all right, looking good, passing the other two up by some margin, but not exactly jaw-dropping numbers yet. Let's get into reverse with max torque and over 50-year-old testing method for impact wrenches, which is 10 seconds in that reverse direction. We're going to call up the M12 with an XE 6.0 from the dugout because just for some reason it tested a little bit better than the M18, so let's see that first. $205. Good to see us cresting those 200s already. Now let's see the DCF911. Last run it was passed up by the Milwaukee a bit. Time for redemption. $253. Redemption achieved. Let's remember this tool is rated for 250 tightening, already picking up a W there. Now let's see if the 921 Atomic can keep up. Can that pint size still pack a punch? $259. Okay, still staying ahead of the 911 despite being smaller, so that's impressive, but also not holding much of a gap over it anymore either. Only one way to tell who's coming out on top on a truly tight bolt though. That's our best case scenario test. Batteries fresh off the charger, 15 seconds in their preferred direction for both the DeWalt's, that's reverse, which we like to see. Here's the 911 up against the M18 again. $274 over $249. You gotta hand it to both of these tools, hitting their torque claims in the DeWalt, surpassing it in this case. You love to see it. But is that tiny 921 out of steam? Too small to improve on its 10-second run? Let's find out. Here's the Atomic. $319. Get out of here. That tool, once things are good and tight, just keeps trucking. A very linear application of power that doesn't teeter out when it's tight like an impact driver does. Those hammers inside, despite being tiny, really doing the job. Based on that torque curve though, sort of coming in late compared to other compacts we see, we're interested to see what other YouTubers get for nut busting on this. We're not really sure if and how much better it's going to be than the 911B in this case. This tool was, though, just immensely impressive to all of us, essentially the same weight and size of the Milwaukee Gen 3, but look at the gaps on the curve, just impressive stuff, full stop when it comes to torque. But when it comes to everyday usage, this tool does experience something you'll see us discussing more and more with DeWalt's, and that's having a higher than normal amount of variance between runs, which we've isolated, we think comes down to simply how you hold it. Something sort of specific to Stanley Black & Decker made impacts for some reason. Our BCS run is best it could muster, of course, but while Milwaukee and heck most impacts usually see 4, 7, maybe 10 foot-pounds different on another run, if you find yourself holding this impact more pointed down at 6 o'clock rather than 12 o'clock or vice versa, or whatever the tool prefers, you find yourself hitting numbers more like 290 instead of 319, which is still more than either of these others two today, but just some advice if you're stuck on a bolt, tilt it up or down until you see more progress like we tend to. With that covered and with power runs now in the books, let's head over to the rank chart before we cover special mode settings and how close those come to advertised. Starting here for now next to the last DeWalt we tested in the category and also next to the Milwaukee's conveniently enough. Their runs are turned into points as 15, 25, and 27, then 19, 26, and 32 for the 921 Atomic. The 911 is the same length as the 12 volt, yet the Atomic is both smaller, lighter, and more powerful somehow. That makes for 52.2 and 64.2 points apiece. Quite good for cordless. Both of these tools hit their torque claims. We're fans of Stanley's torque rating system on this channel, as it not only usually matches our own, but between tools, it usually measures up for comparison as well. That's very rare, we find. The 921 costs more, but made more. That evens things up a bit in this column for 24.3 and 24.1 points. That totals 243.5 and 265.3, putting the 921 in second among cordless, just below the some bit longer Makita, and placing the 911 above the 12 volt, but almost identical there. I believe we'll be dropping the 12 volt off this list as it's almost the same tool to not penalize the others by double dipping in the rankings, pushing them all down, and we'll list its power and score figures here in the comments. But these scores are accounting for costs, size, and claims. If we're talking purely power across the run, these tools get 213 and 245 foot-pounds on average, which bumps the 921 DeWalt up even further. Now just below the Makita and passing to air tools in the process. Now for those specialty modes. They may not translate well to a dyno, heck, maybe even it's quite silly, but we want to see them. First up sort of does make sense, the low power or speed mode, which is setting 1. It claims 150 foot-pounds. Let's see how much it can throttle back that 319 it made. $135, pretty close. Again, we're finding our results often being pretty close to Stanley-made tools. Now for the timber screw mode. No timber here, but it's supposed to optimize for faster speed. Let's see if it's optimizing for more beans as well. $191, a couple points up even, but it was essentially a wash on the day. We didn't see any improvements using this on its other runs. Mostly the same, though we expect some YouTubers to have some fun with this one into wood. Last is precision wrench mode. When running a fastener down, the tool will pause so you don't over impact it. Let's see if it pauses right away then, because we're going to be impacting right away. Yep, a delay and then lower torque curve for it. Pretty cool. We don't always agree with the dyno on this channel. We have our own opinions and preferences, and for the most part in this series, we let the dyno do the talking. But when the dyno recently said a Makita compact lays the absolute smackdown with 329 and 337 numbers, we sort of said, yeah, okay, fair play. But I'm still reaching for an M12 compact first. It just happens to fit in more places than the Makita if it can't do the job. Well, today, the DCF921 both shaved down the inches to match the M18 compact or so, and put up numbers like 319. That's got to be the #1 cordless compact to be on the market for now in this category. It combines everything we need, size, power, $199. That's expensive for compact, but it's also clearly an all-new DeWalt design. Very little recycled here. Our XC 6.0 battery might be taking a breather, and a DCB 244 amp hour battery compact from DeWalt is getting added to cart real soon with results like this. With the performance we saw today, we look forward to getting our hands on their new Atomic impact driver at some point as well. Seems almost unbelievable torque specs from such a tiny tool, but I guess we'll see. I hope you'll join us for that by clicking subscribe, and thanks as always for watching.